Hey, Renee, Parker, can you guys kill the tunes? Thanks. Check. Okay. So I want to get back and have a conversation about some other options that you've got going in all of this. So again, just are there any questions about this part, about modifying all of this? Are we good on this part? Okay, to get everybody on the same page, I'm not going to use this custom workspace at all. I'm going to use one that's pre-canned in here. So to get to that one, up to the window menu again, down to workspace, and come down to simplified tethered capture, and it'll put us all on the same page. Everybody's thing will actually look all the same in this part. A couple other things I wanted to talk about really quickly when we actually built our new session, just for you guys to realize. When you create that new session, where you ultimately, again, in our case, we were either looking to do it on a pictures folder locally, or we were looking to do it in the shared user partition, right? Those things are viable options, but this is the thing to always remember about this part, is you always want to be shooting to the computer that is inside of your laptop or inside one of these machines. You do not want to be shooting to an external hard drive. The bus that actually goes to an external hard drive is too slow, and it will actually impact the shooting speed that you're able to do. So you're always shooting to the internal hard drive on this. Now, you're more than welcome to, between every shot or at lunchtime or twice a day or however often you want to actually do a backup on that guy, to copy those files off and to put them onto an external hard drive. But you do not want to shoot to an external hard drive because, again, the USB cable or the Thunderbolt cable or whatever the cable is going to your external hard drive is a huge bottleneck. The computer that, the hard drive that is in your computer is actually connected directly to the motherboard, and it is incredibly fast. The other place you never, ever want to shoot to is your desktop. And the reason you don't want to do that is your desktop is the database of your computer. And every single time you make a change on that desktop, the entire database of your computer has got to be rebuilt. And so if you're shooting to it, your tethered capture, and you do 500 captures, you've forced your computer to rebuild itself 500 times, every single time. And again, things will start to crawl. And so do not go there. Finally, there are people in situations that are interested in shooting to a server, a connected server. Before you would even consider that, you would have to go in and do a trial run on that guy. There's some server connections that are fast enough that would be able to support it, but most won't. And again, if the writing speed of your files as they are coming into your computer is impeded in any way, it's going to affect the entire performance of what you're doing in Capture One. Does that make sense, everybody? So again, always shoot to the internal part here. It just makes it so much simpler to do. So I just wanted to throw that part out there. Okay, we got through that part. Okie dokie. So this is where things are going to start getting a little complicated. All right, so does everybody still have this session up, the one that's got the My Lighting demo in it? Are we all good with that part? Okay, so if we take a look, I want you to go to the library right now, and we're going to start up here at the very top. And I want you to take a look at this thing that says Session Folders. And you'll see that underneath it, it says Capture Folder, Selects Folder, Output Folder, Trash Folder. This is one of the most difficult concepts to get your head around in Capture One, but what it means is this. The thing you've got to realize is that these are not necessarily the folders that we built for all of this. So for instance, if you hover over the Capture folder right now, I want to go look at this out in the Finder. I want to look at this. The easiest way to get there is, again, hover over the Capture folder, do a right mouse click, however you guys do it. Again, I hold down the Control key to do mine. You'll get a drop-down menu, and one of your options here is to show this folder to you in the Finder. So if we click on it, it will take you out, and you can see that, yes indeedy, right here, exactly what I would expect is that here is my session folder. The session is this mother-parent folder here, and inside of it are the two files, the preference files for this guy. There's the capture folder, an output folder, a selects folder, and a trash folder. And this is the order that you would actually expect this part to be in. Does that make sense? However, This capture folder is strictly being pointed to by an alias that exists here in Capture One. And to show you what that means is, if you come down here to your system folder and you click and you drop this open, and I'm going to just pick, I need you to pick a different folder in there. So I'm going to go to a different folder. I'm going to open up my user. You guys can go to any other folder that you can find. So for instance, I'm going to do Columbia College. It's a giant parent folder that holds a whole lot of stuff for me. If you come over to this guy, again, also hold down your control key and click on the drop-down menu. You can say, I want you to set this, my Columbia College, or whatever folder you guys pick, as the capture folder. And it's going to say, would you like to remember the previous one? I'm going to say no. You will now notice that there is a little icon of a camera that's right next to this thing that says Columbia College. If I scroll up to the top again to my sessions folder and I click on this and I then say show this to me in the Finder, again, if you hold down your control key and click and say show this to me in the Finder, it shows you Columbia College. It does not show you the capture folder that is in that session. Does this make sense? Because I just told it I want a different folder to be the capture folder. So the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. If you look at the structure right here, this is inside session one, capture folder, output folder. You would think that in the program capture one, this would always point to that folder, and it is not the case. You can redirect all of this stuff to anything else. So I can say I want a different folder for my output. I want a different folder for the trash. Even though it appears that this is the session that it's the ones that you would expect it to be, it's not. Anything is safe. That's not the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that these things right here do not represent those folders out in the Finder. These things right here do not necessarily have to be these guys right here. And we're going to leverage that right now. So I'm going to go back to get this to be my original part right here, to go back. So again, I am going to go down into my system folders. This lets me navigate through my computer, and I am going to go to Pictures folder. And inside of Pictures folder, I'm going to go down to the session itself, which is this one right here. And I'm going to pick that capture folder again. I'm going to hold down my control key to get my drop-down menu, and I'm going to set this as the capture folder. And I'm going to say no to that, and now it is reconnected. So now if I go back up here and click on this capture folder, it is pointing to the original one again. And if I hold down the control key and click on this drop-down menu and say show this to me in the Finder, it's not going to show me Columbia College anymore. It's showing me the capture folder that is in that session. Ellie?
So this is kind of a specific question, but is Capture One similar at all to Lightroom in the way that, like, if you rename that folder, will it, like...
We're going to look at that right now. So hold that thought, because we've got to take this same thing a step further, and you'll see, okay? We'll see. In some versions of Capture One, this works better than others. In some cases, it does respect the link, the connection between the two. And if you rename a folder in the program, it actually goes out and renames it in the Finder. Sometimes, again, this has not been consistent, and so I can't tell you how it's going to work in 12, but we're going to find out. Sometimes in older versions, back in the version like 9, if you were to rename, so for instance, if you were to come in right now and rename this capture folder, it would rename it back in Capture One as well. It goes both ways as long as Capture One is open and running. That has not been the case. That was not the case in 10 and 11. If you change the name in 10 or 11 in the program itself in Capture One, it would change it in the Finder, but it didn't work the other way back again. So we'll find out how it works here. Okay, so guys, if there is no better takeaway from what's going to go on right now, I'm going to show you the trick that is going to separate you guys from everybody else who knows or thinks they know Capture One. This is the first thing of this entire series that is going to separate you and take you to professional level Capture One. And it's the next thing that we're going to go down and talk about. So back here in Capture One, I'm going to look down here. For the time being right now, I'm going to skip over session albums. We're going to get to those later. But what I'm going to go to now are session favorites. And session favorites is the tool that everybody uses. It's incredibly powerful. You guys have got to focus on this one because this is how I expect you to be working. This is the way I expect to see you working. This is going to play into everything else that we do. So here we go. This is misnamed, and it's the first thing that you should realize. You should ignore the word favorites. This should not be called favorites. Everybody has bitched about that for years because favorites implies things like, I don't know, shit on your Instagram account or whatever. This is not what this is. What this should be called are subfolders. So you should think of this as session subfolder. Get that into your mind. Forget all about favorites. This is not about favorites. This is about subfolder. That's just the way I want you guys to think about this. Are we good on this part? To do this, though, to not confuse anything that we're doing here, I want you to change the session that we're in. So I'm going to ask you to go back up to the session at the top and change this to the one that we made for today, because this will be a new virgin copy of this guy. So we won't have any images in there. Again, if you click on this capture folder right now, you'll see we don't have anything over here because it's pointing to a different folder. It's pointing to the capture folder in this session, not the old one. Make sense? Okay, but to get down here to session favorites, that again should be called subfolders. So here's the trick and the difficult part about all of this. How many of you guys are fashion? Some, right? So when you shoot fashion and you plan on doing that, how many of you guys separate out your shootings by outfits? Or do you just all throw it in one big lump? Nightmare. You can't do that. Don't do that. You don't want to do that. You want to separate them out. And so for me, a typical day for me shooting fashion is that usually I'll do 15 outfits in a day. It's an average number. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 10, but that's a good average number. And so what I want is shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4, shot 5. I want to separate out all 15 of those, and so they are not all thrown together. Because if I do 100 captures for something, which would be a lot for me, half of what you guys typically shoot, but a lot for me. Again, I'm really good. I get it quick. I don't fuck around with this stuff. I know I zoom in 50 frames. That's enough. If I don't get it in 50, I'm never going to get it. So, but at any rate, I've got 15 of those, and I'm only so let's say I'm doing 100. That's 1,500 frames, and you've got that all sitting in one folder. You out of your fucking mind. So weddings. Who shoots weddings? Juliana, how many shots do you do in a wedding? A what? No, just ballpark it. I'm not looking to shame you or anything else. I'm just ballparking it. 800 to 1,000, right? And so then you get back home and you have got 1,000 frames that you have got to deal with, that you have to confront. What would happen if you could actually break that down into parts of the day? So for instance, do you typically go in and shoot the bride as she's getting dressed and all that kind of shit, right? So that would be the preamble to it all, right? And then you do the service at the church or wherever it is, right? And then you do the party afterwards. And then you do boudoir from them at the honeymoon night, right? No, just kidding. No. See, but that should be something you're thinking about. You know, let's carry this full-blown, guys. It only doubles my price for that work. But does that sort of make sense? So you could break your day down into shot number 1 that had, again, the bride getting dressed, that kind of stuff. That's only 100 frames. Then you do the wedding part, which is probably considerably more. You know, that's like 300 frames, whatever. And then the bulk of it really probably is the party, the reception, the dancing, the toasting, all that kind of stuff, right? That would at least begin to make it manageable for you, right? So it's not just about fashion shooters. It's not just about beauty shooters. You guys can think of it always in this sort of like possible way. Does this make sense, everyone? So Liz, in your case, you may shoot more than one news story in a given day, right? So you could build separate sessions for all of them, or you could treat it as a single session for the day and then break it down into subfolders. Does that sort of make sense, what's going on here? So that's how we need to think about subfolders and the way that we're going to construct that. So I want to show you what this really means. So to do this, we're going to do it two different ways. The first way is, I think, the more painful way and not the way I would really suggest doing it, but I want to show it to you anyway. So come over here to Session Favorites, and I want you to click on the little, first, has everybody gone into the version session that we built for today? The 20191019. Lakeisha, yours is going to be test. That's the one that you built for today. Because I don't want to screw up the stuff that we've already got going in the folder, the demo folder that I gave you. Okay, so to do this, come over to Session Favorites, click on the plus. A dialog box will open up, and it's going to say, well, where do you want to put this thing? And you have got to find the capture folder for this session. So the capture folder for this session for me is, I don't know where mine is. I think it's on my shared one is where I put mine. Yep, it's sitting right here. Mine's in the shared partition. Yours will be in your picture partition. So I'm going to click on that. Some of you were able to get to the shared partition. You need to navigate to that. And then you need to get to the capture folder itself. So is everybody able to get to their capture folder for this session? Who can't? Are you good, Juliana, or no? All right, so you did get to shared, so go to shared, and it should be, that session should be in here, and it's not in here. Hit cancel really quickly. That part's right. Hold down your control key and click on this and say, show it to me in the Finder. Show in Finder. And this is where it is. So click on this is the drop-down menu. Yeah, just the little icon. Well, that's not showing us where the hell that guy is. Yeah, click on that guy. And scroll back over here. So it looks like this is in Isaac's folder.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can navigate to that, or we can rebuild it, but that's never going to help you actually here. But don't worry, because we're just going to go through those process parts. But so again, in terms of clicking on that plus, then you know to go need to go to PT Isaac's folder, wherever the hell that is. No, scroll down. It's going to be on the server. It's going to be on what they call, the. It's not going to be there. Let's just rebuild another one really quickly. It's just going to be easier. So just go new session. Great. Call it test. Click on this drop-down menu here and put it in the pictures folder. So go to fine pictures folder right there and say okay. Okay to that, and then click on this plus and go to that same folder. So again, it was in that pictures folder, and it was just called test. That's the first one, and click on the capture folder. Okay. So when you're in the capture folder like this, you need to come over here and you need to click on the new folder button. And the new folder you want to create is called 01, and say create. And it'll show it to you right there. You'll see it's a 01 that's sitting inside of your capture folder. Is this working for everyone? And then hit the add button. And you will see right under here, under session favorites, you've got a 01. Is that working for everyone? Okay, that's the long way to do it. To get to this spot really fast so that we don't have to go through all this navigation headache again, come over to your 01, hold down the control key, whatever you use to get a double. I can tell you right now, Capture One uses this right key for everything. So right mouse click. So click on this drop-down menu and say, show me this in the Finder, show in Finder. And it'll take you right to that folder, and we're sitting right in here. So I need everybody. Did everybody get out to 01 in the Finder? Okay, so this is going to be the easier way. I'm going to close up a bunch of my other windows so that I can see Capture One going on behind me. Leave this one open right here, but if you've got a whole bunch of other Finder windows, get rid of those because you want to be able to drag and drop this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on not O1 here, because if O1 is active and we create a new folder, it's going to get nested inside of O1. I don't want it inside of O1. I'm simply going to click in the space under Capture, and so now when I do New Folder, it's going to go in the same place as O1 is. And so I'm going to hold down the Shift key and the Command key and hit N. That will give me a new blank folder that's sitting in here, and I'm going to call it O2, and hit the Return key. I'm going to click again underneath it because I don't want to do nested folders. If you don't click underneath it, it's going to put the next new folder inside of O2, and I don't want it there. If you can't remember the keyboard shortcut Shift Command N, simply come up to the File menu and come down and say New Folder. And it'll put it in here called Untitled, and I want you to call that O3. And then I want you to make 2 more. So again, I'm going to do O4, and I'm going to do O5. Now, this is how I would set up my computer to do 5 different outfits. Juliana, in your case, this could be your 5 different divisions of the wedding. This would be, however you like to see that part. Does this make sense, everyone, what's going on here? Are we good on this part? Okay. Select 2, hold down your Shift key and select 5. Now, we've already got O1 in here, so that's why I'm not selecting it to begin with. I'm just selecting O2 through O5. Click on the icon and start to drag. You'll see mine isn't moving, so I start to click again. And you need to drag over onto Capture One under Session Favorites and let go. And it will put O1, O2, O3, O4, and O5 now should all be sitting in your Session Favorites. That to me is a much, much, much better way of adding these things than it is to actually try to deal with clicking on this stupid plus button, clicking on New Folder, clicking on Add, clicking on all that kind of stuff, whatever. It's just much, much, much quicker to do. Does this make sense what's going on? Okay, I need to... I'm going to show this to you guys. We will do this next week in class, but I'm just going to show you what this looks like really fast because I've got a computer that's right here and I can do it. All right, so I've just got a camera set up, and I'll shoot pictures of the seamless. So Liz, you and Ellie are not in this, just so you know. And I said you guys are not in this picture. I've got a camera that's pointing right at you guys, and I just wanted you to know you're cropped out. Right? Okay, so here's the trick. I'm going to check to make sure that my camera is connected. It is connected. What's the exposure on those rolls of seamless on the back wall? Oh, come on. Nobody's even going to venture a guess? All right, I'm going to go to a 400 ISO. I am going to go to a 15th of a second. And I'm going to shoot it wide open. I'm close. I know. Guys, this is your language. Can't you look at that and feel? Anyway. So I am going to go back here to my library setup. And you'll see that this is actually sitting here in my capture folder. I'm going to show you this in my folder. So I'm going to, again, hold down the Control key, click, and say, show this to me in the Finder. And you will see that the capture is sitting right here. It's sitting inside of this folder. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do is actually break this out into my different shots. So I am going to come back into Capture One. I'm going to throw this guy away. And I'm going to start this process again, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Capture One on the favorite, on the subfolder. I need everybody to click on this subfolder here. And I want you to hold down, again, the Control key or however you get your right mouse, click on the drop down, and I want you to say, set this as my capture folder. It's going to ask you if you want to remember the previous one. The previous one is the parent. I do not want it to remember the previous one. So I'm going to say no to that, and you will now see that there is a little camera icon that's right next to this guy. Again, if you hold down your Control key and click and say, show me this in the Finder, it's going to show you this folder right here, 01. So I'm going to come back here to this guy right here, and I'm going to actually make another exposure. So I'm going to click on this. I think my exposure was about 2/3 of a stop too hot. So I'm going to say OK to this now. It's still a little hot in there, but nonetheless, I'm going to take a look at it though, and you will notice now that this is sitting inside of my 01. If I click on 02, I don't see that anymore because this is in my 01 folder. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go back to my camera and knock off 2 more frames. And you will now see, if I go out to my Finder to look at it, those 3 captures are sitting here in 01. However, I've got a problem with this. And the problem that I've got with this is that this has got some whacked naming convention in here. This is not at all what I want to use. This has got some of what I want to use, but it's starting at 183 and then to 184. None of this is actually going to work for me. So I need everybody to do this with me right now because this is the next part of what happens with these session favorites, which should be called subfolders that you want to leverage. This is what is going to separate you. When somebody sees you do this, they are going to say, okay, this is somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm hiring this person, and it's this. I want you to go into your camera folder, to the camera icon right here, and under Next Capture Naming, you'll see that this is the old version of it. It's set up to name with camera counter. Now, yours may not be that way, but mine is. It doesn't matter. I'm going to change all of this anyway. And please do this with me. I'm going to click on these little 3 icons right here to get my new naming convention. I am going to click in the top in Format, and I'm going to get rid of camera counter. Is everybody doing this? I'm going to add an underscore after that by simply typing in underscore. Then I'm going to scroll down to destination folder name, and I'm going to drag that token up here. Then I'm going to put in another underscore, and then finally I'm going to scroll up to the top and grab this 1-digit counter and drag it over, and then click on its drop-down menu and say 3 digits. So this is now what I've got, and you can see the sample preview for it right here. I've got the name of my shooting, which again is the 20191019 blah blah the session we built for today. It's got an underscore in here, and then it knows that I set 01 as my capture folder. That is the destination folder. Underscore, and then the frame count, and you can see this is starting at 05 because I've already got 4 of these going on in here. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. If I want this to work properly now, again, I am still, because this is now set up, I'm going to get rid of all the files that are in here because they have been mislabeled. I'm simply deleting them using the delete key. I am going to then reset my counter here. Again, we went through resetting here. So up here at the very top, click on this guy, and I'm going to do reset capture counter. And now you will see that it's going to name my first frame with the name of my shooting, underscore, the shot that I'm doing, underscore, 3-digit counter for my frame number. Does this make sense to everyone? And then I'm going to do, I still think I'm a little hot, so I'm going to go down another third. I'm going to hit my first frame. And look at the frame that it actually gets tagged with. This is now saying 201910 underscore blah, 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 01. And this lets you know what your shot number is, and this is frame number 1. Does this make sense, everyone? I'm going to do 2 or 3 more frames here. So then let's say that was my whole first shot. That's the first shot that I did of my first outfit. Then go back to your library, click on O2, hold down the control key, get the drop-down menu and say Set as Capture Folder. You will see that the little icon goes from the O1 down now to O2. Also, if you go out to the library and look at capture naming, you will actually see that O2 has now been added to the name, giving you the distinction between where you were and where you are now. But the problem is, and again, this is automatic for every digital tech I know who does this. They come here and they check to verify this. They see that it's going to start at frame number 04. Again, this camera counter is sticky. It goes between shots. It's smart enough to update to the camera, to the O2 folder, but it's not smart enough to reset the camera counter. So you need to, again, reset the camera counter. So I'm going to go reset capture counter, and now I'm ready to start frame number 1 of my second outfit. Is this making sense? Who did I lose on that one? All right, so again, I'm going to knock off a few frames. And you'll see this is doing exactly what I expected it to, what I wanted it to do. It's capturing these guys. It's tagging it with shot number 02, frame 1, frame 2. Does this make sense, everyone? We good on this? However, now the art director comes along and says, we need to shoot more of your shot number 1. The girl looked awful. We want her hair up instead of down. It was the wrong socks. It's the wrong what. I mean, it happens all the time. So we are going to go back and add to our shot number 1. So click on the library, go back and click on this subfolder 01, hold down the control key and say, I want you to set this as my capture folder. Again, if we go and look, you'll see in here that I've got 3 frames that exist in here. If I go back to my camera and look at my sample naming right here, you can see I've got a problem. And the problem is this. It picked up the fact that I've gone back to shot number 1, because again, this camera counter is sticky, it's going to name my next capture as 03. I've already got an 03. So again, I click on the little 3 numbers up here, the little 3 dots, and I say set capture counter, and I put in number 4 instead of number 3 and say OK. And now it knows that I am going to continue with that. And so now when I do another frame, it's actually going to keep it in order, and it's not going to overwrite my first one, and it's sitting right here, number 4. Is this making sense to you guys? Are we good on this part? This is a game changer because now you don't have, it used to be in the old days that people, if they had 15 shots, they would do 15 sessions. Nobody does that now. Everybody does a single session with 15 subfolders or 20 subfolders or 150 subfolders. And they all get tagged automatically. You don't have to go in there and rebuild all of this. All you got to do is reset your capture counter and you are good to go. All right, are we good on this part? Okay, so let's say you have got a problem, and the problem that you realize is that all of this has the wrong name. This shouldn't have been named, what are we recalling our guys right now? So let's do this. Let's go back to, because I want you guys to actually do the renaming part right now. I'm going to go back to library. Leave this folder that you've got your sessions in here, and let's go back to the other session that actually had my files in it. So it's these guys right here. So has everybody got these guys back up? Okay, so with these guys back up, we can look at this and we can say, oh my God, I've made a mistake here. It was the wrong date. It was the wrong, I didn't do this on 08. I really did it on 09, right? So the file's names are wrong. So we need to actually change those. So if you click on the very first one, and I'm only going to click on one to begin with. Again, this is a control key or right mouse click, whatever you do to actually get this. Click on your right mouse click and you'll get another drop-down menu, and you can actually come down and you can say, I want to rename this file. And when you do, it makes it editable for you. It comes up and you can actually go in and you can now click on the name. Instead of 08, I'm going to put in 07 and say, okay, it's now been renamed properly. However, if you want to rename a bunch of them, click on the very next one down, then scroll to the bottom of your screen using just scrolling down, use the scroll bar on the side, hold down the Shift key and select the last one, and you will see it's selected all of these guys right here. You should have a small set of thumbnails that sit up here showing you that all of these have been selected. If you don't see this, if you only see a single one, it's because you have got this thing unchecked right here. There's this little 4 square right here. If you've got it unchecked, if it's not been highlighted, you'll only see a single image. It's only, if you click on it and actually highlight it, then you'll see everybody in here. And then you can click anywhere on here again as a right mouse click and say you want to do a batch rename. And in this case, it's actually going to give you the job name and the battery counter here and all of this kind of stuff. The easiest way for me to actually do this part, you need to keep this 3-digit counter in here, but would be to change this name right here to the one that I had in the very beginning. And what I had in the beginning was 20191007 instead of 08 underscore CCC underscore, and it was ComDemo, COMDEMO. That's going to be my part right here. And then you can see right here, it's looking to start to doing it at frame number 51. That's not what I want. I want this to start at frame number 2 because, again, I've already renamed the first one, but only one that was frame number 1, right? If I scroll up to the top, which I can't do, but if I could, you would see that it was starting at frame number 2. Does that make sense, everyone? So then again, to get to that, I'm going to click on the 3 little dots at the top, and I'm going to set my rename counter starting with 02, or just 2, and say OK. And again, you'll see your sample right here, and this is exactly where we want the rename count to start. And I'm going to click on rename. And it will go through and rename all of my files. And you can see they're all properly named right now with 07 as opposed to 08. And then the rest of it, the capture counter worked just fine. So again, it was started with frame number 1 up here and then 2. Does that make sense, everyone? So this part is great. However, the one thing that's not great is the session itself. So if you look at the session itself up at the very top here, you see it's still listed as 08. So we're going to go out to the capture folder here. So again, I'm going to hover over the capture folder, do my right mouse click to go to in my drop-down menu and say, show this to me in the Finder. And you will see here in the Finder that you've got your capture folder. It's all sitting in there. That part is right. However, this thing right here, the actual name of the preference is incorrect. If you change the name of this preference, you will destroy this session. And you can't recover from that. Well, you won't lose your images, but you can't recover from destroying the session. You cannot change the name of the session here. So this works to your advantage in 2 ways. The first way is if you need to do what I'm doing right now, if you need to redo it and so that everything matches, so that the session matches the name, you're going to do what I'm going to show you right now. But more importantly, if you have a corrupted session and you cannot get it to launch, as long as you have your capture files, you're fine. You rebuild a new session and you drag your captures into the new unperverted session. Does that make sense? And so that's what we're going to do right now. So go back into Capture 1. We are going to build a new session. So up here at the library, I'm going to simply click on New. I'm going to do a new session. So again, this would be in the case of needing to change a session name or if you have a corrupted session. And the session that we are going to rebuild now is the correct name, 0191007 underscore CCC underscore com demo. And again, that's not an underscore. This is where I'm going to put this. I am going to, again, put this in my shared user location. You guys can put it in either that or your pictures folder, either one. So actually, I think I'm going to put mine in my pictures because it's, well, no, I'll put it in my share folder one. And again, make sure that open in new window is unchecked, and I'm going to say OK. This builds a brand new session, and again, I'm going to navigate out to its capture folder. So I'm going to Control-click to go to its, show it to me in the Finder. And I've jumped out, and here it is in the Finder, and it's sitting here empty in the Finder. But this is now a session that has the correct name. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the old ones that have had they have been renamed but are in the wrong folder. Remember, I'm in this session 08 is the incorrect folder, and I'm going to go to its capture folder, and I'm going to click on all of those files that are in there. You can include the Capture One folder that's in there, and I'm going to drag these into the Capture One folder of the correct session. So who did I lose on that? Are we good on that? I'm simply taking the captures from the original one that had the wrong name, or if it was a session that would not open, again, I've simply built another session for it that has the correct name. If it's one that won't open because it's broken, you can actually have it be the same name and call it version 2, at least until you can actually get the captures from the old faulty one out into the new working one. Are we good on this part? So I've copied these over. Everything should be fine here. I'm going to go back into Capture One, and this always happens. When you go back into Capture One, you don't see any of those files. Is that happening to you? You need to click on the capture folder, and they're there. So this happens to everybody, and they come into here and they go, I don't see any of my files, and it's because you haven't selected the capture folder. Are we good on this? And now you could throw away the old one, either the one that was named incorrectly or the one that would not open. But again, if you guys, all of a sudden somebody has got this and it's crashed on them and they cannot get their session open and they think they've lost everything, and you come walking in and you rebuild a session and you copy those files over, they look at you and they're like, God, I do not pay you enough. And you're right, and you say, you're absolutely right, you do not pay me enough. What are you paying me? What would you guys charge as a digital tech? What's your rate? What? Anybody? Going rate for a digital tech in Chicago right now is $450, $500 a day. If you're really good at it, you can bump that up to 6 or 7. If you're in New York, it's more like 6 or 7. If you're really good there, you can bump it up to 1,000. Do you know how important this shit is? This could, you work 3 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year, you're making 200 grand. I can live that way, right? No pressure, you're not shooting. Oh yeah, right? Okay, are there questions about this? Ellie?
The Capture One folder that was inside the capture folder didn't transfer.
I'm sorry, what? Here, no, wait, I'll come over.
It said, like this folder,
Yeah,
and the old one,
yeah.
it didn't transfer over.
It will rebuild it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, so I didn't have to transfer.
No, you don't have to. So what Ellie's asking is that if the Capture One folder that's sat in there, we should actually go look at that really quickly. I need everybody to get back out there for me really fast. So again, to get out there, hover over your capture folder, hold down the Control key, click on the drop-down menu and say Show in Finder. What she's talking about is this folder right here. She said, I think you said it didn't copy over from the old one. It doesn't matter. This thing rebuilds every time. So it'll simply rebuild itself. Even if you do copy it over, it's going to rewrite itself. But we should look in here really quickly for 1 second. How many people in this room know what a sidecar file is or an XMP file? Sort of, right? Okay, I need everybody to do this. In this folder right now, is everybody out in their Finder? In their capture folder and got these CR2 files? Can you go there? So again, if you're in capture 1, hold down the control key, click and say, show this to me in the Finder, just so that you can get to this folder. It's sitting right here. I need you to double click on just one of these files. Look at this file right here. Look what's in here right now. You'll see that it's nothing but CR2 files and then this folder right down here that says capture 1, right? So if I double click on this, it's not going to take me back into capture 1. It's going to take me into Photoshop. It's a raw file, just like you guys have been doing this shit for years. Right? It's going to take me into capture, it's going to take me into Camera Raw inside of Photoshop. Hopefully. I knew I should not have done this. Did anybody in this room get into Photoshop? Let's look. So what? Yes? Oh. All right, hang on guys, because again, I'm sorry, but I've got to show this to you. So I'm going to stop this recording.